Does it make it like an impossibly hard time, do you think, for someone who's not technical to be a CEO right now?
I think it'd be really tough, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
in the last generation of companies, if you're building like Uber or Deliveroo, they're like, you can see the app and you can see the project mat like working on it.
Yeah.
Trying to build an AI company when everything's like software engineering is like completely changing. Like,
Yeah.
it's radically changing in
Yeah.
front of us.
Barney Hussey-Yeo is building one of Europe's most successful fintechs and making money management simple, fun, and occasionally even sassy. He's the founder and CEO of Cleo, the chatbot helping millions of people across the US take control of their finances with a bit more personality and a lot less guilt. Join my colleague Saranga as he sits down with Barney to talk about how his fascination with AI led to Cleo, what it's like running a 400-person company that still moves at startup speed, and his vision for a world where AI doesn't just answer our financial questions, it acts for us as well. I'm James Wise, and this is What's Next? Conversations with the founders and CEOs building the future.
Barney, welcome to What's Next.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming in. We were just discussing before we got the cameras rolling that we've actually known each other for about a decade, I think. Now, today, most people and you're well known, you're pretty high profile as an entrepreneur here in the UK and actually in the US as well. And I think people sort of associate you with, a fintech company, Cleo. People think about it being a consumer company. But to me, at the heart of it all, you're an AI founder. What brought you even into this arena of trying to build a company?
Yeah, it is crazy that it's been 10 years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's really crazy. So my background, computer science, then went into a master's in machine learning because in, 2014, that was the thing, and it still is the thing. And if you look at that exponential of machine learning and research output,
Yep.
it is the thing of the last decade and will be for the next couple of decades. It's just the most interesting thing in computer science and therefore the world today.
Yep.
And I was a data scientist after I graduated at a very interesting fintech. And I had two options. I was trying to really figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Being a data scientist was great. I got paid well. I still hit my overdraft, which annoyed me a little bit, hence Cleo. But I applied to do a PhD at UCL with Channel 4. So you could get, for 5 years, you worked part-time as a data scientist and part-time doing your PhD at UCL. And you earned 30K a year doing this. And then there was this really interesting thing a bunch of my cohort had done while I was doing my master's in machine learning. And it was entrepreneur first. And the more I talked to them about it and the more I looked at the people in there, like the people were fantastic. If you looked at every single individual person that came through EF, they were all wildly smart, wildly ambitious, and so interesting characters.
Yep.
And at that time, that start of your career, you want to be around the most high IQ, high agency, interesting people. They call it cracked these days, don't they?
Yeah.
Stranger.
Yeah.
996. So they were my two options, and I got persuaded by Matt Clifford to go do EF. So I was not going to do it. I was going to do the PhD. That was my path.
Yeah.
And then he took me for a beer in Bermondsey in a really terrible pub. And he was like, you can go do the PhD after. Just do this for 6 months. There's no risk. There's nothing off your back. Just go try it. Like, you may as well try and do something, that's going to change the world and be really impressive. And his sales pitch was Ben, but he was a very good salesman.
Yeah.
And he got me in there. And then it's such an interesting place to be. And you could talk about EF, but it is this like pressure cooker of ambition.
For those who don't know or who didn't know, like EF, you literally joined, people would join literally from sort of college or a master's, right? And you didn't even have a co-founder necessarily, right? It was just sort of, you meet people. I mean, it was super early. It was much earlier stage than say Y Combinator is. I think,
it's like
right?
pre. It's like, just take it like, it's like the Teal Fellowship almost, like post-university. It's like, take the most interesting, smart computer scientists, throw them in a room together and create this like pressure cooking environment where you're going to have to pitch to everyone every single week, where we're going to push you. And out the back of it, let's hope to see some innovation, some company creation. And it's really unique. Like, there's nothing like Entrepreneur First. I thrived in it. I love just love the intensity of the whole thing.
I want to go a bit earlier, actually, weirdly, because what I don't know anything about is your life before university. So tell me a bit about the young Barney. Like, I guess I'm particularly intrigued about whether there were early hints about your interest in computers and AI, and also whether there were early hints about your interest in being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I guess I've got like a weird path in a weird way. Like I come from the Northeast. I'm from Sheffield. I'm from a state school. Like all of my peers today do not come from backgrounds like I came from. They did
Yeah.
not come from state schools. They did not come from Sheffield. So I think it's quite an oddity that I got here. And I definitely think, I know there's lots of weird things about me, but I definitely think I had like a level of intensity and a level of ambition, even when I was very, very young,
Yeah.
that it just wasn't normal. And I had like this disregard almost for the rules in a lot of ways, where I'd do my own thing and make it. My first entrepreneurial activity sounds terrible to a lot of people, sounds very impressive to other people, but I played online poker very successfully for a number of years. And that's how I funded my lifestyle at university and my master's.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do a master's in machine learning if I hadn't made,
Yeah.
all that money playing poker. So it was a bit of a unique place, but it's always had this thread of like, I'm just going to make it, or I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think, the best people have that in them. Like there's an intrinsic.
You really did. I mean, so it's interesting. I mean, here at Balderton, you work primarily with my partner, Rob, who led the investment that we made into you. And he did it really from a sort of financial services point of view. He thought that was the opportunity. And that's his, that's one of his areas of focus. I met you at about the same time, more from the tech point of view. And I knew less about the application. I knew more about the underlying technology. And I remember at the time that there was a sort of almost like a ferocity of, you were convinced you were going to be very successful and that you were going to build something that was going to really work. And at that time, obviously, it was a preposterous level of self-belief because, you were just, however old you were, you'd just come out of uni, you'd spent a few months in EF and done well there. But there's still a lot that could have gone wrong, right? And but you had that energy, you had that sort of utter conviction in yourself, actually, more than anything else. So it's fantastic to sort of be sitting here 10 years later and seeing that it's basically come true. So tell me about those early days. So why of all the things that AI could be applied to, and we're seeing more of that explosion right now, why did you think that consumer finance and the product you built at Cleo was the right application?
Yeah, there's definitely like two vectors. Like there's one was the problem, and that was very obvious. Like I was working at fintech, I could see what was happening to society.
Yeah.
This was post, financial crisis.
Right.
Had 6 years of real income stagnation. Like it had really, really stagnated, and like people were just worse off for every single generation. And even if you look at the US, like real incomes, even with GDP growth, had been stagnating for decades before that.
Yeah.
So the low and middle income in society were worse off than previous decades.
Yeah.
And the way they managed their money was just like atrocious. There's no financial education. There's no way for them to reason about it. There's no intelligence with any banking app.
Yeah.
So there was a big problem with the world that I wanted to solve. But then two, I was just fascinated by AI assistants. I was like very sure that would be the next paradigm of computing. Like if you think about how computing's evolved, it's always just got a bit more human every single generation, from the mainframe you're attached to it, to the laptop, to the mobile. Like just talking to an AI was like so clear.
Yeah.
And if you looked at the research output, 3-4 years earlier, it was all vision. So if you're at NIPS, it was all about vision. As I was going through university in like post years, it was all about NLP. NLP research was like really skyrocketing.
Yeah.
And when you talk to professors, that's what they were excited about.
Yeah.
And that was why I was so excited about it. So you had that, and then all the platforms were opening up as well. So you probably don't remember, but like Facebook Messenger opened up their APIs on WhatsApp and Messenger. You had Alexa and the Google Home, which still haven't worked, but I'm sure will work in the future.
Yeah.
So I was very enamored by the idea that you can have this proactive agent that just like reasoned over the data that was being created, and then it could just do things on your behalf and tell you things. And it really had product market fit. Like when you put a little landing page out there, had the demo, people went nuts for it. Like the signups, like the wait list, like there's very intrinsic human product market fit that they want to talk to AIs, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
But I think we've played that out now over the last decade.
Clearly.
It's quite correct. So you had those two big things. And then I was just very sure this would be the next interface and the next way of doing it.
So that's interesting because you're right. NLP was really hot in 2015 or so. But it was also really hot in 1998 or something. Didn't work then. And it didn't work for most people, I would argue, in 2015. I mean, I remember we invested in you, but we looked at so many other chatbot companies. I won't embarrass anyone by naming any of them now, but we basically we didn't invest in any of them. And in the end, it was the right decision because none of them became big companies, right? Now, today, that seems crazy again. So if you're someone who's like, lived really only the generative AI sort of era, you might think this is obvious, but it really wasn't obvious. So how did you guys make it work? Because you did, right? I mean, because I remember when I first met you, I thought, okay, I love the vision, I love the story, but I bet he's going to end up with, dashboards and stuff because we know this chatbot stuff isn't really good enough. And yet actually you always made it work and it's good. And now it's only gotten more powerful. So yeah, how did you talk a bit more in the tech, I guess, of how that worked?
Yeah. The thing that gave me real confidence was the usage. So when we launched it and we pushed messages to people and we saw it,
Yeah.
people were really using it. Yes, the responses were not as good as we wanted them to be.
Right.
But I was just so sure on the research trajectory. Like they couldn't be that much research output, that many smart people. Like it was a real exponential in research. And it was only 2 years after I launched that you had the transformer architecture. And I was like,
Yep.
And then it took 3-4 more years until they really scaled it up. I thought all of this was going to happen sooner than it happened.
Okay.
Obviously, that's why I started the company and
Yeah.
tried to raise money doing it. But it's a real exponentials are hard to predict and they're hard to kind of really rationalize and reason over. But we're on a really steep bit of that exponential. Every model release,
Yeah.
it's wild the difference, right?
Yeah.
Like going from the 3.5 GBT to like 0.3 now.
Yeah.
Such a big difference in what you can do and what it can unlock for Cleo. I was just very sure of the research trajectory. It was my overconfidence thing again. It's like I'm so confident in my own ability analysis, like where this is going.
Yeah.
And then and it paid out, right? Like
Yeah.
once 3.5 came out, I was just like, yeah, we're done. This is
Yeah.
it.
But you're right about the timing being really hard to predict, right? Because
Yeah.
I remember, I forget if it was just maybe it was one of our CEO sort of cat meetups, or you came in to do an update for us. But you talked about the transformer architecture. You're one of the first people I remember talking to about or talking about transformer architectures. At that point, they were basically just in the literature. Google had released a paper, and you were super excited even at that point. But then, as you say, there was kind of silence for a while before we got to see what OpenAI had been quietly building. So I guess what was that like for you? Did you you read about that technology? Did you immediately start working with it? Did you adopt it, or was there a period of waiting? Or
That bit was in our system like as soon as we could get a hold of it, right? And it's always been iterative improvements. But there was this like seismic jump once they launched 3. Like even if you use 2 and 2.5 and 3, the qualitative jump of that product when ChatGPT came out, I think for any human you could feel it. It suddenly became like radically useful. And I've got all these great machine learning engineers at Cleo. I've got a big machine learning engine. And I talk to like the ones that have been at the company for the longest time. I'm just like good friends with them. Whenever they're excited about something, whether it's transformers, whether it's embeddings, whatever it is, then I get excited about it. And it's like just talking to those guys, and when they're excited about what's coming, I'm like, okay. Like this new, the open weight models now from ChatGPT, we've got it now on Grok. We're using it. It's like so fast, so quick, actually really, really powerful. Everyone in the company, it was only launched, 12 hours ago?
Yeah.
Everyone is so hyped about it. And like, it's already deployed. It's already live. It's already like doing tasks for us. It's already like cut costs by like 10x in places.
Yeah.
So like, if you just follow the researchers, like they're the people, don't talk to founders, right? Like most founders are bozos. They're like the McKinsey consultants in London.
Yeah.
Talk to people that are actually the researchers, and that's where you get the direction of where computing's going.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the most interesting people are.
How do you remain current and ensure that organization can, exploit a development that happens today or yesterday, while at the same time having kind of, long-term plans, long-term growth, stability, all those things? Because it's one thing running a 10-man company or 10-person company, right? You can sort of throw away everything you've already got because you haven't got very much anyway. You're getting to that stage in Cleo now where there are real assets there that you can't throw away or you don't want to throw away. And yet, you also need to be ready for the future. So I don't know, how do you balance all that?
You've definitely, like, over the years, I've always been very ship it.
Yeah.
Let's move fast. Let's break things.
Yeah.
And there's the Apple end of the spectrum, which is pure quality, structure, secrecy.
Right.
Cleo is over here.
Okay.
Over here somewhere.
Okay. Somewhere near Meta or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even
Early Meta.
Yeah. over time, we've had to add more structure, more process, more long-term strategy, 400 people getting together and doing stuff. You got to do
Yeah.
that. Still though, 30-40% of the company,
Yeah.
pretty free reign. And like, we just hired like 15, 20 machine learning engineer grads on my Slack messages in the last 20 minutes. I'm like, put them all in a channel with me. I've got 5 things, like projects that I want them to go do and explore. It's very free reigning, like me to the engineers.
Yeah.
There's no, there's not like engineering manager 1, engineering manager 2, engineering manager 3. There's Barney, a bunch of engineers and designers, and that's how we like ship products in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Obviously, like the squads and process, but like being very close to those engineers and those researchers, and actually being friends with them and knowing them is so valuable versus, sitting in your ivory tower
Yeah.
and directing it through your like heads of heads and your middle managers. So I think you have to be very in the product and very in the weeds, even as the company scales. Otherwise, you're just optimizing something that's working, and that's not where Cleo is today. Like, we have something that's working, we've got that, but we still need massive innovation to be a ginormous company in the future. So I still have to get pretty in the weeds and pretty technical for stuff.
Yeah.
But that's also my background, right, as a data scientist. So I love this stuff. Like, it's interesting to me to use Grok. It's interesting to me to use these open weight models.
So double clicking on that,
Yeah.
at this time, of sort of whatever commercial industrial history with these sorts of companies, this sort of technology, do you think it's, part of why you connect directly with those, newly hired engineers is because you're interested in it, you're excited by it. But part of it is because you can, right? I mean, you have the right background to talk to them. You have the same schooling, the same education, et cetera, et cetera. Does it make it like an impossibly hard time, do you think, for someone who's not technical to be a CEO right now?
I think it'd be really tough, right? Like, I think in the last generation of companies, if you're building like Uber or Deliveroo, they're like, you can see the app and you can see the project map, like, working on it.
Yeah.
Trying to build an AI company when everything's like, software engineering is like completely changing. Like, it's radically, radically changing in front of us. If you don't understand machine learning, if you don't understand LLMs, you don't understand deep learning, I don't know how you would like build and the technical strategy changes drastically. Model really, like, reasoning completely changed our architecture, like completely changed everything. So I think if you're not technical and your wider leadership team is not technical, I think you can build a nice Deliveroo style company. Deliveroo is a great company. I'm not bashing Deliveroo, but it's not a deeply technical company.
No, listen, as a fellow Northern State School computer scientist, this sounds great to me. It's a point that I've talked about a lot, is that this idea that particularly in the UK and Europe, historically, technical people were seen as sort of fitting into a certain box, working on the tech, being very clever, being boffins, etc. But they weren't necessarily very good at understanding a business. And this used to always annoy the heck out of me. Because I always thought, actually, if you're building a tech company, you need someone at the top who, yes, of course, understands the commerciality and the business, but also who understands the tech viscerally. Otherwise, you're only ever going to be as good as the sort of most recent wave, right? After that, you're just going to sort of slightly iterate on top of what's already there. I guess AI and the speed of development right now just makes this more obvious, right? And just more the case.
If you think about what you should do as someone like, growing up now, like, you should absolutely do machine learning. Like if you're not doing computer science and machine learning at university, like, it's such a missed opportunity. Like, the amount that you can do, the amount of capabilities that you have because of that education, it just...
Okay, well, listen, we were going to talk about the company, so let's do that more. So talk me through, I guess, so the what's next audience tends to be a bit more technically leaning. Talk us through, over the 10 years approximately of Cleo's history, how the internal tech has changed. Because as you say, the vision was very clear. It was about delivering advice, to average consumers, and you were going to do it through this chatbot-like interface because you really felt that was the most intimate way you could have a relationship with that user. But the underlying tech that was available to you has completely changed in those 10 years. So what did you have to build on day one? And recently you released version 3, Cleo 3.3.0. Tell us what that looks like under the hood and the journey, I guess, between the two.
So much has changed and been like completely thrown out. You were talking about things that don't get thrown out.
Yeah.
a lot actually in an AI company, a
Yeah.
lot of the architecture does and should change like quite radically differently. So back in the day, NLP,
Yeah.
you had intent and entity detection. It was basically just supervised machine learning where you'd build up all these intents, those like manually written copy for everything. We had like 25 comedians on staff at some point. Like there was a big manual part to writing the copy itself.
Okay.
And then you were just using supervised machine learning to predict the intent or the entity and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And this is obviously like radically changed. And even going from non-reasoning to reasoning, that's a big architectural shift.
Yeah.
Because previously we were having to get all the API calls and all the tool calling into that first system prompt because you would, have you send the message from the user with the system prompt and you get a response, and it was just like one-to-one. Now with reasoning models, they can call all the tools, they can gather all the context, they can, reason per se, and they're able to interact with your system in a much different way than like even 6 months ago or like 12 months ago before reasoning models have come. So like we did re-architecture our system to really take advantage of reasoning models. And now like all the tools that we have, all the APIs we have, the model has access across all of those things to say, this was the question from the user, this is the type of user, this is the user's financial health, this is the set of things that you have at your disposal to be able to answer this question, reason over it, call all the data, pull everything that you need to, and then give a response. And that's only just for, reactive request response. We're not even talking about the proactive bit of building an AI agent, which is actually the most interesting and like the next thing I think all these models will get really, really good at.
So staying on reactive for now, though,
Yeah.
just before we'll definitely go into proactive in a second,
Yeah.
but just staying on reactive for a second. So again, like simplifying in massively, I would argue that, 10, 15 years ago, if you built this sort of thing, you used machine learning to essentially map, non-deterministic, quite unstructured language to a fairly deterministic, structured query, effectively, right? So you sort of, you got sort of kind of, very human looking input, and you used a whole bunch of really smart algorithms to say, okay, what this person really wants is this. That, here is the actual very structured question they're asking. So they've come to you saying, oh, I'm worried about my child's birthday next week and blah, blah, blah. And what they really mean is, how much cash will I have this time next week? Will it be enough to pay for this product? And then that in turn, leads itself very easily to a bunch of structured queries. So you go ask a particular question of the bank account, you go ask a particular question of Amazon's pricing of a given toy or whatever it is, and you pull all that together, and then, like you say, you repackage it into human language using writers and human editors, and then push that back, right? So it was sort of this translation almost, and I guess now the point is, you don't even have to, the translation layer is less necessary, right? The engines themselves are able to do a level of that reasoning themselves. Is that kind of the direction of travel?
Yeah. And you think about supervised machine learning,
Yeah.
where you're predicting a class.
Yeah.
Imagine all the classes,
Yeah.
like the permutations of that tree of conversation that can be.
Yeah.
There's thousands and thousands of intents.
Right.
So like you're asking a question and then you're trying to predict high dimensionality,
Yeah.
lots of class labels.
Right.
It's a really hard like when you've got like a binary yes no, like
Yeah.
machine learning is really good and much easier to do that.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to predict 5,000, 6,000 classes,
Yeah.
the ambiguity and the ability and like just language itself is very hard for that kind of supervised machine learning.
Yeah.
So you would always get like, imagine balance. That's like a super easy thing to predict.
Yeah.
But imagine as you go down that tree of conversations that you were just talking about, it becomes harder and harder to predict the classes, which is why NLP, in its traditional sense with intent and entity detection, is so brittle.
Yeah.
And then imagine all of like, you've got 6,000 intents there. Do you then have to have writers write various permutations of all the copy for that? You have to be able to script in data,
Yeah.
so it pulls in last week's spending for this query, and like the writer has to reason over it. It's hugely manual tasks to be
Yeah.
able to build a system like that.
Yeah.
So like we've gone from
And one thing changes and it has this
you-
effect on
like,
everything,
it's
right? Yeah.
completely
So,
messed up.
very brittle.
But this was the dominant machine learning kind of paradigm in
Right.
the 80s, 90s, right? When
Yeah.
we had logic-based systems.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever did like Prolog or whatever.
Yeah.
Something
Absolutely. Tragically, yes, I did. Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
that bit. Everyone thought that was going to be the thing,
Yeah.
right? Like, could we
Express
just
systems and exactly. Yeah.
And the people that bet on that, well, lots of people actually just changed their mind as well. Lots of people were.
It's also
public systems.
that was all that was available at the time, to be fair.
Yeah. Those very early neural nets.
Yeah.
But no one believed that
Yeah.
the neural nets would actually become.
Yeah.
Just think about the power of
Yeah.
It is pretty wild,
Yeah.
like how powerful. It is working, and there's like anyone that kind of, even when I was going to do the PhD, where my advisor, one of his first questions to me is like, "Hey, what's your view on deep neural nets versus this?" And he was almost a bit of a skeptic of deep neural nets, and I was like, "Oh, this is the future, blah blah blah." And like even really smart people just didn't quite grok that this would be the future. I'm not saying like, I'm the person that completely grokked it,
No,
had all
no,
this
I
thing.
understand. Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely been the paradigm that's won, and there's like a lot of headroom in it, which is very exciting.
Yeah. So that, as you say, yeah, very exciting, and it sort of unlocked this opportunity. And maybe tell us a little bit more about Cleo 3.0 because it is relatively recent. I mean, what are some of the new developments that you're most proud of there?
We really lean into reasoning. Like that's been the big shift, I think. Like more at runtime compute, more and more and more, and that ability to tool pools and really reason over someone's finances is pretty exceptional. Something we spent a long time at Cleo, talking about throwing things out. We spent a huge amount of time understanding the transaction data of users through the years.
Yeah.
And there was a big investment from us there. Almost from like 01 to 03, I was like, oh my God, like all this work that we've done is kind of becoming relevant because now 03 can reason over transaction data, raw transaction screens, look at the merchant, look at the category, like really think about it. And it's almost like, completely changed how we approach that. And there's all these little companies, by the way, that do transaction data enrichment as a service, which like now
irrelevant.
Yeah, just irrelevant. So we really lean into reasoning, and we've really leaned into voice as well. So full duplex voice, you can talk to it like ChatGPT, and we now have this like voiced first features, so where there's game, money IQ. I don't know if you ever played Trivia HQ back in the day. It was the viral startup.
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
Very, very similar concept. Where we've got the AI
How does it work?
agent,
Okay.
and it's the host of the game show. So it looks over your spending for the week. You've got like 5 questions, a few like general knowledge, and it's like this fun moment of the week where you'll win some money if you answer correctly. People have gone nuts for it. Like it's been a week, and like
because it's based on your own data, right?
So yeah, it's based on your spending data, and it's so interesting, and it's like led by this AI agent who's like funny and interesting, and Cleo's always had a personality, right?
Yeah.
So like we've really brought that in and leaned into it, and I think there'll be more and more of these features, like voice first features. I'm like very excited about that over the next 2-3 years.
So let's double click a bit more on this, because this is the other thing that I think has been intriguing about Cleo since day one, which is that you married, like fintech, if you want to, for want of a better term, with AI, but also with a deep understanding of, I would argue, sort of psychology. Because from the very beginning, your pitch was that there's just such a large number of people and a growing number of people who are fundamentally successful. They're people who work hard, they get a good job, and they stick at that job and so on. But the reality of macroeconomics today, especially in the US and in Europe, is that it can be still very tough for some of those people who are sort of sitting in the middle, realistically, the middle class. And you wanted to build a tool that would help them get the most, get what they should get from their finances, really, right? And not make the sort of easy errors that could end up putting themselves in a bad position. So, and part of that is looking at the data and figuring out what to do. Part of it is psychology, right? And because, what will someone actually do? What won't they do? I mean, just talk us through a bit of that and how you think about that at Cleo.
I talked to my friends at the pub about this startup I was building and money. Like, they would switch off. They found it so boring. They didn't want to look at their banking app. So I knew from a very, very early age, it was like, it had to be really engaging and fun if I was going to get anyone to use this thing. The mints of the world never worked because they were dashboards you'd have to log on to. It was the people that loved Excel, but like we are building for the general populace.
Yeah.
And I think that's something people just don't get. Like you have to make everything's like any consumer app is entertainment intrinsically. It has to engage, it has to make it fun, it has to make it something you want to come back to. And when you're trying to grow weekly active users 7% every single week, you quickly figure out what.
But how did you get that? Because okay, so I'm going to make an admission here. Yeah. I was a big Mint user. I lived in California at the time when Mint first came out, and it was the most talked about startup at the time. And for anyone who doesn't know, it was basically a very, very, very early Cleo where you would log in, connect a bunch of your bank accounts, and then it would, exactly as you say, give you a bunch of charts showing you, that you spent too much at Starbucks and, you weren't putting away enough money in your pension or whatever. I loved that idea. I found it really addictive. It got acquired by Intuit, I think, very early on for not very much, $100 million maybe. And then they shut it down, and I was depressed about that. And then, a couple of years later, I meet you. And really, I mean, I should have been so excited about backing you at that point, just on the basis of the product, let alone the technology. But I didn't get that. I mean, I remember talking to you about this and saying, but surely Mint. And you said, no, it's got to be different, Saranga. This is how it. So how do you, on the one hand, be a total geek, if I can put it that way, like computer science AI guy, who must have stood up growing up in state school Sheffield, if that was your interest, and it wasn't the other things that you should have been interested in. And yet, apparently, man of the common touch who understood how people wanted to or didn't want to talk about their finances. So how did that happen in one person?
You ship the first version and then realize you're wrong. So
Okay.
like the first version, I built I'd built something for myself.
Okay.
And it was basically just an R script logged into my bank.
Yeah.
And then pulled my transactions and then did linear regression on my balance and predicted when I was going to run out of money.
Okay.
So it had stats, it
Yeah.
had graphs. I was
Yeah.
like, this is really useful.
Yeah.
The first version was for me.
Okay.
Try showing that to a bunch of normal humans.
Yeah.
And sitting with them.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just didn't get it.
Yeah.
Didn't get it at all. But I built this one little feature where with Twilio, it just pinged me and just said, hey, you're running out of money. Stop spending on Uber Eats or Deliveroo, you idiot. And my friend saw that.
Yeah.
And he was like, you need to stop with these graphs and stats, Barney. Like, that's funny. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That was a real little aha moment for me. And then as I got demos out of the product and I talked to users, it was very clear, you obviously get a sense of they don't really find money just complicated and confusing and overwhelming. And they don't really get graphs and stats. But if you give it in plain English and you make it funny, then they're like, oh, I get it. I now know what I've got to do. So it was just from
But this is I think one of the most, so I mean, as a VC trying to invest in the current exciting AI boom, we look at and invest in a number of foundational AI companies. That is almost the easy bit, in my opinion, because that's understanding the science and believing that, the team has an edge. So if you look at our investments in Wave on, the sort of self-driving car foundation model, or, others like that's easy. At the application layer, the thing that I keep hitting is people who either are applying AI to a problem that isn't the kind of problem it really solves.
Yeah.
Or if they can solve it, they haven't figured out how to make it actionable to the end user, who isn't in the end a machine learning expert the way that they are. And you've achieved this incredibly well, right? You found a extremely valuable, actually socially impactful, massive problem, which is this, this understanding of financial data for a consumer, right? Being able to manage that better, the risks and the opportunities that provides, I guess, for an individual. You've also figured out how to communicate that to a person, a regular person, not a stupid person, a smart person, but someone who isn't obsessively interested in linear regression graphs, right? So I guess how can we get more of that? Because that to me, it feels like that's the ingredient a lot of these AI startups are missing.
This is my biggest gripe about VCs. If you actually look, especially in Europe, at what they fund, is largely enterprise, it's largely B2B, it's SaaS. It's things that they can easily put into a financial model.
Okay.
For most VCs, they want to be able to rationalize it to themselves. They kind of want to be a user and they want to be able to put it into a financial model really easily. There's very little capital that goes into consumer startups, both actually in the US and Europe. There's a real, and the reality is all the good consumer investors as well end up being quite young, and therefore they're not the big name partner at the firm, so they get less capital and less leverage. I think there's so many interesting consumer applications, whether it's health, education, finance. There's all these really big domains of your life where you'll have an AI agent that'll do things for you and make your life much richer and better, but they require a bit of a intellectual leap for VCs. And I think that's really hard if you can't logically, like a frontier model, go, okay, there's Moore's law, computing's going to get better, and with more data, rational. With a consumer startup, you kind of have to just, early Facebook, it was still like a toy used by university students. Had to be a little bit of belief in it, and there has to be, I think, just more bets in the consumer space. Yeah, Balderton needs to write some more consumer checks. That would be my message.
Well, you will see. I think by the time this comes out, there will be a very large consumer outcome that we will have announced. So
Amazing.
You'll be happy to hear that. Yeah. So maybe that will inspire us to make a few more kind of consumer investments. Not bets, investments, Barney. We make investments, not
There you
take
go.
bets.
No
Yeah.
bets.
Okay. So been really interesting conversation so far. Just, I guess let's look forward a little bit. Where does Cleo as a company and a product go from here? What's the next big thing you want to grab?
The thing I'm really excited, like, if you think of all of these agents in the moment, whether ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, they're all still basically just better search. It's all very, you have a question, you're thinking about something, you have a conversation with it, you try and get the data out of it.
Yeah.
And it's you having to think about something and then ask a question. And oh my God, I ask it a lot of questions. Like, it's completely replaced Google for me.
Right.
But what it's not doing for me yet, and what I think a lot of the best AI agents will do, is they'll reason over all the data you have, all the data you created, who you are, your goals, everything, and they'll come to you and do things for you. I don't really want to have to sit at a computer and like type questions or be on my phone and type questions. I just want things to happen for me. If you just had, which you kind of do with your associates, but you had these humans just like always around you, trying to like predict what was useful for you and help you live your life, you get a lot more done. A great EA, a great associate, whatever it is, they do a huge amount of like labor for you. Imagine if everyone in the world has a team, you know, almost like 1,000 AI agents that can just work autonomously on their behalf, that know everything about them and do things for them in the world. That's a really powerful vision that would like change society massively. That's not just talking about like getting rid of economically viable jobs. It's not about displacement. It's about you being able to do more with your life and live a better life. And ultimately that's what technology is, right? It's like we're building consumer apps because we want to help people live better lives. And the ultimate instantiation of this is to throw a huge amount of intelligence, a huge amount of compute, a huge amount of real IQ that understands all the context around you and then does things on your behalf. And I think that lie is going to make us all like healthier, wealthier, like live a much better life. So I think there needs to be 1,000 more consumer AI startups. Balderton needs to deploy its entire fund
in that area,
into this area,
yeah,
because this is the future, in my opinion. I think like all the apps are going to change. Like you won't just have apps on a 4-inch screen anymore. You'll have AI agents that are, maybe it's plugged into OpenAI, maybe they're individual agents. Who knows what the distribution channel is going to be? But it will just really understand you, and they'll be able to do amazing things for you in your life. And that's pretty cool.
Let's talk a bit about Cleo today. So we just talked about how we met 10 years ago. The company's been on an incredible tear over that almost decade. Just by the numbers, Barney, tell us how big a business and a team Cleo is today, and the scale of impact that it has.
Yeah. It probably sounds bigger to people than it sounds to me, but we're 250 million ARR. We're growing 2x year on year. We're profitable, which is nice. And it's a team of 400 globally. Like the thing that's unique about Cleo is there's not that many companies at 250 million plus ARR that are growing 2x. So like that's a smaller set of companies. The wild thing is, because of the markets and how it's been in fintech, we've made that capital so efficient. So like the getting profitable at 250 million ARR, growing this fast, there's only a very small set of companies in the world that have ever kind of achieved those three things at this scale. Like the last one was literally Google. Google got profitable at 90 million ARR. Faster than we did. But there's, even Facebook, they were burning billions until they got to multi-billion ARR. The best investment at Balderton has got to be Revolut, right? And they raised a huge amount of capital through that period until they got to that stage. There's very few companies that have the growth, have the scale, and have the profitability. And then it's a fantastic team. Like it's very globally distributed now. Like, we operate 100% in the US. So we've got lots of US staff, and then we've got a big talent arbitrage in London where wages have stagnated for a while. So getting machine learning engineers a lot cheaper now. I always actually say, like, every year I do a podcast like this, and it's like the salary differential started off as like 1.5x.
Okay.
And then it was 2x.
Yeah.
And now for a machine learning engineer from like Cambridge, Stanford, it's now 5 to 10x.
No,
the
is it
difference
really?
between London and San Francisco, because of the exponential price increase.
Yeah.
So like if you're building an AI startup, I do think London is the place to do it because the talent is there, great universities, far, far cheaper, and you're able to raise West Coast capital or from Balderton,
Yeah.
your consumer health startup.
Yeah.
And then you're able to do amazing things. So, yeah, anyway, great team. Like really, really fantastic people.
And talk to us a bit about the users. How many people use Cleo now on a whatever the base, however you count it, monthly, weekly, daily? Yeah.
Yeah, millions of weekly active users, and then we're 1 million paying subscribers now. So we've got 3 tiers. We've got Plus, we've got AI Pro, the middle tier, and then we've got our card tier Builder at the top end.
Yeah.
And yeah, like if you look at our user base, it is low and middle income Americans. It is not the people that have 1 million, 100,000 in, equities. It's just normal working people right up the income spectrum. So median age is 27, they're 18 to 38, around there. Very distributed across all the states, and they are, they're just normal people. And like, I think sad that you can get to a bit of a sad state of affairs here when you really look at their finances and understand the trajectory. It is much harder to get by in America as low as middle income this generation than it was the previous generation, even the generation before that.
Yeah.
So this is like the big societal crisis, right? This is where the populism is coming from. I'd say like Western Europe and America is like something like Cleo really needs to exist. And
Yeah.
we also need big structural changes, whether it's to get the economy growing in Western Europe or whether it's income redistribution in the US. It's going to be very hard to fight the populists if you can't solve those two things.
Yeah. 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 No, I mean, people talk about that trend all the time, right? Like in the US in particular, yeah, I mean, this sort of the hollowing out of the middle class sort of thing. But I guess you see the data every day. I mean, you literally see, as you say, 1 million people all across the United States, people who are working, who are doing jobs that ought to be, good enough to have a great life and to sort of feel progress, but actually they're in a really constrained place financially.
And that's why I'm always very thoughtful and vocal about kind of where Europe is going, where the UK is going.
Yeah.
Because it's a very negative trajectory.
Yeah.
Like if wages do continue to stagnate and we have these exponentially rising costs, whether it's paying for their healthcare, paying for pensions, whatever it is, that just is not a good place to be in as a country. And America has a slightly different problem where they have this amazing growth. They've had this tech revolution, trillions in market cap created, loads of GDP growth.
It's not shared.
But it's not shared in any way. So like the basic safety nets aren't there in America. So you're actually better being poor in the Nordics than you are in America, which is a crazy thing, right? Think about the Nordics growth and how big they are as a population versus the US.
Yeah.
I think that the common narrative in people's head would be definitely be in the US, American dream, Actually, better off being in Norway than you are in the US.
Yeah.
And that's not how the society should be functioning in reality. So yeah, lots of work to do, both nationally and a consumer level as well.
Barney, thank you so much for coming in. It's been fantastic to talk. I wish we'd done it more often over the 10-year period, but I guess you've been quite busy building a massive unicorn. Again, thank you for all the hard work you've done on behalf of Balderton and our investment in you. It's fantastic to see how far you've come, but also super excited about everything that you've got planned for the future. It's been great to have you today.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to What's Next. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you want to learn more about the frontier of deep technology in Europe today, please like and subscribe. And if you're interested in learning more about working in deep tech, look at the Balderton website to learn more about us and our portfolio companies.